Welcome back to A1 Storyteller, your favorite place for gripping neighborhood drama, outrageous twists, and endings that hit like a gavel in a courtroom. If you're new here, buckle up. And if you're a returning fan, you already know how we do it. We take true-to-life inspired stories, add the spice, drama, and a little dose of justice. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and stay to the end, because this story will take you from manicured lawns to courtroom bombs. You won't believe how one woman's arrogance turned into her ultimate downfall. Today's story is titled, HOA Karen Spike Stripped Black Elder Woman's Cottage, Finds She's State Prosecutor. And trust me, this one's personal, powerful, and packed with poetic justice. Let's dive right in. In the heart of a clean, quiet suburb nestled between rolling hills and artificial lakes was Willow Bend Estates, a community so well ordered it almost didn't feel real. Rows of pastel-painted homes stood perfectly in line, flower beds manicured with ruler-like precision, mailboxes aligned like soldiers. The sidewalks were spotless, the lawns always freshly clipped. And overseeing this manicured kingdom was a woman who believed she was its queen, Karen Spike. Karen wasn't just a resident. She was a self-made authority. President of the HOA for 5 years running, she lived for the bylaws. Her clipboard was an extension of her arm, her lawn as flawless as her pearls, and her tone, oh, that tone, could strip paint off a wall. She didn't just enforce rules, she weaponized them. The neighbors feared her, respected her, tolerated her, but no one dared cross her. One woman tried to plant sunflowers in the wrong flower bed once. By morning, they were gone. Another resident had a mural painted inside his garage. Inside, and somehow, Karen found a rule to cite him for a neighborhood disharmony. Karen's home sat at the center of Willow Bend like a throne on a hill. A camera above her garage captured every angle of the street, and she watched it nightly like her own personal sitcom. She wasn't happy unless she had someone to correct. And when the old Peterson Cottage, a charming, historic home at the edge of the community, finally went up for sale, Karen's heart fluttered with anticipation. "This will be my project," she murmured to herself. "Whoever moves in, they'll learn the rules. My rules." The cottage had character, white shutters, a slate gray roof, and a slightly off-centered porch. It stood out in a sea of uniform homes. Karen had long considered it an eyesore. She had already written down changes the new owner would need to make before they even arrived. Then, on a crisp Thursday morning, the new resident arrived. The moving truck rolled down the cul-de-sac, followed by a sleek black Range Rover. Karen peered from behind her curtain, mug in hand, and out stepped a woman unlike anyone in Willow Bend. She was in her early 60s, maybe older, though her back was straight and her stride was sharp. Her skin was a deep, beautiful brown, smooth like carved mahogany. Silver curls spilled over her shoulders, neatly tied back with a silk scarf. She wore a long camel coat and designer boots. No family trailed her, no teenage children, just her standing tall, composed, and completely unbothered. Karen's eyes narrowed. Here we go. The woman began instructing the movers. There was no chaos, just quiet authority. As they unloaded boxes, Karen scribbled notes. Planters too large, porch mat unapproved design, black shutters, not HOA compliant. She was practically drooling. Later that afternoon, with her clipboard in hand, Karen strutted across the street like a politician on a campaign trail. She rapped twice on the freshly painted door. It opened slowly. Karen beamed. "I'm Karen Spike, head of the HOA. Welcome to Willow Bend Estates." The woman regarded her with polite calm. "I'm Nyla Daniels. Nice to meet you." Karen pushed forward. "We like to personally greet all new residents and Of course, go over a few of our community standards. You see, we take pride in how we maintain appearances here. It keeps property values high and everyone happy. She thrust forward a thick packet of printed rules. I made you a copy. Nyla took it without glancing down. Thank you. I'll review it. Karen squinted. Just so you know, the porch planters are not on the approved design list, and the trim around your windows, black, isn't within HOA color range. You'll need to repaint within the next 10 days. Nyla smiled faintly. We'll review everything and respond accordingly. Karen was already thrown off. Most new residents offered apologies, made excuses, even panicked. Not Nyla. Her tone was neutral, not rude, but firm. It irked Karen deeply. Well, Karen sniffed, we look forward to your full compliance. As Karen turned and walked away, Nyla quietly closed her door. No more words, just grace, stillness, and silence. Karen hated it. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen tried every HOA trick in the book. First came the notices, formal and informal. Karen left them daily in Nyla's mailbox and sometimes under her welcome mat, each citing obscure infractions. Mailbox flag too brightly colored. E-curtains visible from street. Don't match MIA. Approved. Pallet. E-vehicle parked half an inch over driveway line. Nyla responded with none. Instead, she remained a mystery to the neighborhood. She was seen walking in the early mornings, earbuds in, with a confident pace. She waved politely to neighbors, offered soft smiles, and didn't gossip. Her yard was always clean. Her lights were always out by 10. But she never engaged with Karen's antics. By week 3, Karen was fuming. She thinks she's above the rules. She hissed at the next OA meeting. I've sent 6 violations, and she hasn't responded to one. Not one. Not one. If we let this slide, next thing you know, people will start painting their houses purple. The board was mostly elderly men and women who had long since grown tired of Karen's obsessive micromanaging. But no one had ever stood up to her, except now. And that was dangerous. Karen hatched her next move. A formal notice of non-compliance. It wasn't common, but Karen had convinced the HOA years ago to adopt it as a tool for community emergencies. It allowed the board to take action to correct violations without homeowner consent, essentially a hostile takeover of property aesthetics. It was extreme. It was rarely used. But Karen had the signatures. Saturday morning arrived with a chill in the air and heavy clouds overhead. At exactly 8:15 a.m., a truck with a clean sweep property services pulled up to Nyla's driveway. Karen stood at the edge of her lawn, arms crossed, clipboard in hand. The workers, 2 younger men, approached the house cautiously. Karen called out, "Go ahead, it's all authorized." The men, uncomfortable but under contract, began the work. They removed the black planters. They painted over the black window trim. A fresh, sterile white. They took down the bronze wind chimes. They even started uprooting parts of her garden. As the rain began to fall, a single figure appeared in the doorway. Nyla Daniels. She stood silently in her robe, arms folded, watching. Her face was unreadable. Karen grinned. "You were warned. Non-compliance has consequences." Nyla didn't say a word. She turned, stepped back inside, and closed the door. Karen felt victorious. She had won. But deep down, she couldn't shake the look in Nyla's eyes, calm, like the ocean before a storm. What Karen didn't know was that Nyla had recorded everything. From the moment the first worker stepped foot on her porch to the final repainting of her shutters, every second was on camera. And this time, Karen's spike messed with the wrong woman. Rain tapped against the windows of Willow Bend Estates like a nervous metronome as Karen Spike sat smugly in her living room, sipping lukewarm chamomile tea and watching the rain wash over her quiet kingdom. She felt satisfied, accomplished, triumphant even. The woman who had dared challenge her HOA authority had been put back in her place, or so she thought. Because while Karen was busy patting herself on the back, Nyla Daniels was busy preparing a legal bombshell. Inside her tastefully minimal home, Nyla sat calmly in her office, surrounded by neat stacks of paper, 2 open laptops, and a softly humming printer. Every letter Karen had delivered was laid out in chronological order, every email sent from the HOA board. And most importantly, every second of footage from her security system, showing the unauthorized entry onto her property, the removal of personal items, and the unpermitted property alterations. What Karen didn't know, and what no one in Willow Bend had even guessed, was that Nyla Daniels wasn't just a homeowner. She was a senior state prosecutor, one of the most respected legal minds in the state, and head of the Public Integrity Division, a specialized branch of the Justice Department that focused on corruption, discrimination, and abuse of authority. For nearly 3 decades, Nyla had prosecuted crooked cops, shady city officials, and corporate execs who thought they were untouchable. You thought they were untouchable. She had dismantled entire police precincts. She had rewritten housing laws. She had once argued in front of the state Supreme Court and won. She didn't move into Willow Bend Estates to cause trouble. She moved there for quiet, for peace, for her retirement years. But she also didn't tolerate injustice. And what Karen had done, that was more than just petty harassment. It was illegal. By Monday morning, Nyla had submitted a formal complaint to the state attorney's office and filed a civil lawsuit in county court naming Karen Spike individually, the HOA board, as a collective body, the property contractor involved in the home stripping, and the HOA insurance provider. For funding unapproved actions. She didn't stop there. Nyla also contacted local media, discreetly, professionally, giving them a statement about an elderly black woman who had her home altered without consent by a suburban HOA. That was all it took. The story exploded within 24 hours. Local headline: State Prosecutor alleges HOA harassment in predominantly white neighborhood. The next day, regional headline: Prominent black prosecutor claims HOA illegally stripped her property, racially targeted. And then, national coverage: HOA horror story. State prosecutor fights back after property whitewashed in alleged retaliation. Karen Spike didn't find out from the news. She found out from the knock at her door. She opened it to find a tall, broad-shouldered man in a suit holding a clipboard and a badge. Miss Karen Spike? Yes. You've been served. Karen blinked. Served? The man handed her a thick envelope and walked away without another word. Karen stood in her doorway, raindrops falling onto the documents. She flipped through pages filled with legal terminology she didn't understand. Words like civil liberties violations, racial targeting, property seizure, mental distress, unauthorized alteration, unlawful HOA enforcement. Her legs felt weak. And the worst part, the very end of the document, under the plaintiff's name, was the title: Nyla Daniels, SQ Senior Prosecutor, State of Redacted Public Integrity Division. Karen collapsed into a chair. Her kingdom wasn't just falling apart. It was under siege by a woman far more powerful than her clipboard could ever dream of being. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors from Willow Bend had taken the day off work to attend. The press lined the back row. Cameramen angled for shots of the woman at the center of it all. Nyla Daniels, dressed in a charcoal gray pantsuit, standing tall, calm, composed. She didn't raise her voice once. She didn't need to. But her opening statement was a masterclass in restraint and power. Who stand before this court not as a prosecutor today, but as a citizen, a woman of color, a senior, a homeowner, a taxpayer. I came to Willow Bend for peace and was met with hostility, not for who I am as a neighbor, but for who I appear to be to someone like Karen Spike. She detailed every violation, factual, precise, undeniable. The footage played for the court, showing Karen's smug grin as contractors painted over the trim and removed planters from Nyla's porch. The room fell silent. Then came the testimonies. A retired couple revealed that Karen had fined them hundreds of dollars for flying a Mexican flag in their garden. Another resident said Karen demanded he cut down a tree that had been in his family for generations, because it cast a shadow on her sidewalk. One elderly woman teared up describing how Karen publicly accused her of bringing down the neighborhood's image because she hung handmade quilts on her balcony railing. The judge listened carefully. When it was Karen's turn to testify, she was red-faced, sweating, and defensive. Why was just following HOA policy, she shrieked. I've upheld the same rules for years. It's not about race or age, it's about order. People like her come in and think they don't have to follow the rules. Your objection, Nyla's lawyer interrupted. He sustained, the judge said, frowning deeply. Spike, you will watch your tone and your language. By the end of the second day, Karen was unraveling. And by the third, the judge ruled in Nyla's favor. Full damages awarded. Personal fine imposed on Karen Spike for harassment. Permanent ban from all HOA positions. Court order for Willow Bend HOA to undergo full diversity training and legal restructuring. The ruling made headlines across the country. But the real victory? It was the one that happened quietly, back in Willow Bend. The neighbors who once feared Karen began knocking on Nyla's door, not with complaints, but with pies, apologies, questions, conversations. And every Saturday morning, children gathered in Nyla's garden for her a Justice and Jews storytelling hour, a quiet act of defiance and healing, where she read them stories of heroes who fought for fairness and people who used power to protect, not control. Karen sold her home within 6 months. No one said goodbye. She moved 2 towns over, taking a part-time job at a storage unit facility, still carried her clipboard, still told people how to park. But in Willow Bend, the community changed. All because of one woman, one prosecutor, one neighbor who decided to say more. The sun rose differently over Willow Bend Estates after the trial. Softer somehow, warmer. For the first time in years, the streets felt calm. Children played freely in front yards, chalk drawings coloring driveways that once would have been scrubbed away by Karen's orders. Gardens bloomed in a rainbow of unapologetic color. Porch swings squeaked gently as neighbors once separated by silence now exchanged greetings and stories. Nyla Daniels didn't just win a case, she opened a door. In the weeks following the court's decision, the HOA underwent a complete overhaul. A temporary committee was formed to rewrite the community guidelines with clarity, inclusivity, and fairness. Nyla was offered the presidency of the new HOA. Unanimously, she declined. I don't want power, she said at the first neighborhood town hall. I just want peace. I want to live in a place where people don't fear the rules, where rules protect instead of punish. The room broke into applause. Instead of running the board, Nyla volunteered to lead monthly Know Your Rights workshops in the community center. Every session was packed. People brought notebooks, questions, and sometimes even tears. One by one, the neighbors unlearned the culture of fear Karen had built and began rebuilding the community they always wanted. Even the elderly Vietnamese couple who had been threatened with fines for hanging lanterns now hosted Lunar New Year celebrations in full view of the street, lanterns glowing gold and red across their porch. No one dared complain. They were too busy dancing with dumplings in hand. And Nyla? She planted even more roses. Purple, orange, black velvet. Her porch was now home to wind chimes, a welcome mat that read a stay a while, and a garden gnome dressed as a judge. Every piece a quiet rebellion. Every bloom a story. One spring afternoon, a young girl named Mariah, 10 years old, hair in twists and eyes wide with curiosity, knocked on Nyla's door holding a school project. "Miss Nyla," she said shyly, "can I interview you? I picked you for my hero." Nyla bent down, smiling gently. "You picked me?" "You stood up to the bully," Mariah whispered. "Like Wonder Woman." Nyla chuckled. "Well, I don't have a lasso, but I've got the truth." The interview became a neighborhood sensation. Soon, more kids were lining up at Nyla's porch. She began mentoring teens, helping with college applications, and encouraging others to consider law, justice, public service, or simply the power of knowing your voice mattered, because in the end, that's what Willow Bend had lost, the belief that their voices mattered. Karen Spike's reign had thrived on silence, but Nyla Daniels, she turned silence into strength, and strength into justice, and justice bloomed one petal at a time. And that, my friends, is how the clipboard queen got dethroned by a quiet powerhouse in pearls. Let this story be a reminder. Not every war is fought with fists or fury. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is a calm voice, a camera, and a courtroom. Nyla didn't just fight back, she changed the game. She showed us what happens when power is checked, when bullies are exposed, and when communities remember their heart. So here's the question for you watching right now. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Have you ever faced a petty tyrant with too much power and not enough sense? Or maybe you've been the one who stood up, calm and strong, and said, "Enough." Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk about it. If this tale moved you, shocked you, or made you want to start your own rose garden of justice, go ahead, like this video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you never miss a beat from A1 Storyteller. We bring you real drama, wild twists, and poetic justice, one story at a time. Until next time, keep your eyes open, keep your heart strong, and never let the rules silence your truth. This is A1 Storyteller, where every voice gets heard.